Hello everyone, I'm really glad to welcome you to our next partners webinar. Today I'm going to talk about Form Engine as it is in Kentico CMS. But first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Myro Rimias and I'm a solution architect here at Kentico Software. Some of you might probably know me from our technical support team. A few organization things as a starting point here. If there will be some problems regarding, for example, screen not refreshing or some audio problems, just let me know via the chat window, and I hope that we'll figure these issues out on the fly. And of course, if you would have some questions related to topic that I'm going to cover today, please do not hesitate to submit them using, again, the chat window located on your control panel. Okay, so I think we should start right now, since we have really tight schedule planned for today's presentation. So what I would like to discuss today is a form engine, and I will provide you with some necessary theory, give you some necessary background information that you need to have in order to fully understand what is basically going on behind the scene and how does it work in Kentico CMS. We'll try to look on the form engine from architecture point of view. So for website developers, I think very important would be API support that there is in Kentico CMS. And also we'll take a look what, where, and how exactly is stored on database level. I will also try to cover all of the customization options that are available for you regarding Form Engine, and also code examples. I will cover these mostly during the presentation after each section. So let's take a look on here. Well, the question here would be, why do we need forms, or why the forms are needed? I think that answer to this question is pretty straightforward, and you will all agree with me that nobody wants to be managing the data using some kind of a SQL Server Management Studio, and that's why we've decided to provide our customers with engine or controls that are capable of displaying the forms dynamically instead of letting them to write their forms, their static forms for each of their website sections individually. Well, the requirements were that the form should have its own form controls that are fully customizable by the editors or designers, and also there should be some kind of validation system for the complete form. And also we cannot forget about letting user somehow customize the layout of the form. This is mostly done with the usage of alternative forms in Kentico CMS. So where we can find examples of the form engine in Kentico CMS, I think the most frequently used module in Kentico CMS is BizForm. So when using the online forms, the responsible control that I'm going to also talk about today is BizForm. In regards managing documents, we've got a control that is called CMSForm, and you can find example of this control in user contribution module, and also on form tab in CMS desk when editing or inserting the documents data. Interesting one control that is also the most important one is BasicForm. You can find example of it if you're familiar with web bar properties or configuration dialog window. I think this is the only place where the BasicForm is used in CMS desk. And when managing the system tables, for example, like CMS user is, we use DataForm control, and also similar one is custom table form that is used for managing custom tables from our custom table modules. Regarding DataForm, you can find example of it, for example, in my account or my profile, or in custom registration form web part. So how does it work? Well, user logs into the website and would like to create some form. First of all, you need to specify the fields for the form, and for this purpose we've got a field editor. So user specifies some fields, attributes for these fields like name, type, size, what kind of form control should be used, and then he chooses or she chooses the appropriate web part that should handle displaying of the form on live site, and then live site visitor comes to the website and submits the form, and data gets saved into database. The most important part here is editing of the form that is done using the field editor. So some kind of a form definition of the form is stored in the database. For those of you, I'm not going to cover the field editor today because we do not have such time, but for those of you who are interested in how does the field editor work, you can take a look on the control file that is mentioned at the bottom of the slide. Well, to be honest with you, it has almost 6,000 lines of code. So, but we'll try to improve this field editor in upcoming version. Okay, from architecture point of view, these are the four most important tables in the database that I'm going to talk about today. The most important one is CMS_class. These are pretty much related to Form Engine. Within the CMS class table, you can find, let me open my database. Here it is, CMS_class table. The most important ones are class form definition. This is the place or column where the form definition is stored of the complete form, and there is also class table name that basically holds the value or holds the table name of actual table where data is stored, because the actual data is not stored in a CMS class table. And also one important column is called class show as system table. I will show you what I meant by letting you know that this form definition is stored in this table. So let's imagine that we would like to extend some table. Let's say e-commerce address. This table is not presented in system tables here in this section. So for this purpose, we can run some update command over our database and set class show assistant table equals to 1, or set it true for the CMS_class table where the class name equals to class that we would like to extend or modify. So in this case we just need to know the name of the class we would like to extend. I will run this script for you, and once I update show class as system table field, the table will be visible or listed in the system tables, and I can easily configure or extend this table with with my custom fields, and I can do this right now. So let's test the behavior. What the field editor does is that it simply also updates the form definition and class XML scheme, so, and also the default queries that are executed over the class. So I can check the update query, and here we go. We can see that our test field is part of the update query right now. Why I'm telling you this, some of our customers are doing such mistake that instead of modifying the tables using this approach, or extending tables using this approach, they're adding custom fields directly to their tables or to some system tables, but the form definition and class XML scheme are not updated. So what basically class form definition stores here? It's sort of a XML file that basically represents what user edited in the field editor. Each of the field has its own definition in here, and this is the most important part of the form engine, because according to this class form definition, basically the form gets rendered. I'll cover this later on, so let's move to next tables. Also, class form layout column holds custom layout, or it can hold custom layout uh, of the class. We can also define custom layout with usage of alternative forms. The alternative form table holds information again about the definition and about the layout. The difference between the class form definition and form definition is that the form definition of the alternative form keeps just the difference between the default one form definition and our changes. Form layout of the alternative form again holds some kind of a layout for the form. There's one special table, CMS_form, that it's dedicated only to BizForm module. You can take a look on this one, CMSForm. It holds the information about what kind of a BizForm is assigned, what kind of a website, etc. So it holds, for example, display name, form name, etc. It's only designed for the forms. For the BizForms. Okay, and CMS_form control user control form user control table holds information about form controls that are registered in Kentico CMS. We can take a look again on this table, and those fields are, for example, user control, name, code name, and for what module the form control is used, etc. Those are pretty much the tables that you should know about when trying to understand the form engine. From API point of view, we've got a form controls, a namespace where our controls are located, like BasicForm, BizForm, CMSForm, etc. And our infos and providers are located in a form engine namespace. Okay, let's go deeper into the basic form control. This one is pretty much important because all of the parent controls like BizForm, DataForm, CMSForm, and custom table form are using this control. What it does, it basically renders. This is the only control that handles rendering of the form according to form definition, according to XML definition that I showed you previously. It validates the data, gathers the data, and initializes the controls with the data if the control is in update mode. So if you can take a look on the screen here, each of the field has its own label, field. The field can be assigned to some category. There is a field error label for each of the fields, so the validation is applied. And also the basic form renders image button or submit button. It depends which one you would like to use. As we can take a look on the right hand side here, the basic control here is basic form. I already introduced this one, and for question could be here, why do we need any other of these controls, the parent ones like BizForm, CMSForm? Well, the basic form is able to display the form and save the data into data row. It is not saving data into database. And all of these parent controls are handling the saving of the data. Like DataForm is getting the data row from basic form, and it handles saving of the data. We need all of these controls because different modules in Kentico CMS do need different behavior. That's why, for example, BizForms are sending some additional emails, etc., and these are ensured by BizForm control. Okay, I think it will be better to show some example of the basic form control here. So I've prepared one page for you. Let's open it in a new window. And basically here is a web part. I'll show you the web part, code of it. Was custom basic form. Here we go. Here I have basic form control that I would like to display some form with the basic form control. So what I can do is provide a basic form with some class name. Let's say BizForm.contagas, and now we can see that basic form displays the form. It can validate the data, and once I fill some values for the form, I press the OK button. We can see that the data row was saved, and we can see the data row, output data row in here. Here we can see class table of the BizForm.contagas class, but as you can see, our data is not presented yet in the table. This is because the basic form does not save the data into database. Only parent controls are. So let's take a look what we need to do in order to initialize the basic form. So basic form control is presented here, and in code behind, what I need to do, the most important part, are to provide the basic form with data row, with form definition, and with the form layout. Well, this can be null. In my case, it's null. But if it is null, the basic form displays or renders some kind of default layout. Okay, so how did I get the form definition? According to our class name that you can see in the URL here, class name, I can get data class info object with the data class info provider, and this object holds basically the form definition. So I can simply get the form definition according to class name. Same applies to class form layout. But important thing here is that we need to provide the basic form also with data row, either with one that is filled with the data or with the data row that holds the structure. How we can get the data row? According to class name, we can get iData class object using the data class factory new data class, and this iData class info object holds the data row. I think this is pretty simple, and what it does basically renders the form. It validates the data and it saves the data row. Here are some special, I would say special settings. I can enable them all, and we can take a look on what advantage they provide. So first one, allow macro editing. Each of the fields will go into macro mode, so you can basically allow these form controls to use macros that will be specified by editor. I'll show you later. Default form layout. This is something that by default is set to standard. I can extend it to tables, and then each of the field category will be rendered into the tables layout. I'll show you also. Use column behind labels. If I set it to true, columns behind the field labels, there will be no columns behind the labels. And render category list is something that you can find in web part properties. Configuration dialog of web part properties. I can also hide a submit button if I access the visible property of it, set it to false, and also I can mark required fields with some kind of a star. Okay, so if I now refresh the page, you can see that the layout was completely redesigned and changed. I can see the list of categories right here. I can see that the categories are assigned to some kind of a table layout. I can see that I do not have a submit button here. I can see that column behind labels are hidden, and I can see the star here at the end of the label that basically tells you that which of the fields does not allow nulls. The important part or interesting part here is the macro editor. So here you can see triangle, small triangle pointing towards this text box. If you click on it, here comes the macro editor, and if I specify some macro in here for this field, now the complete form control goes into is macro mode. That means the field will be not validated even if you specify some kind of validation message for it, etc. But the macro will be indeed resolved by the form engine. You can find example of the macro editing in web part properties, and I think that's pretty much about the basic form. It has also some customization options, but I will cover these later on. You can also specify some kind of alternative form. I can show you that. So now I have different layout according my custom alternative form. Okay, so let's move forward. Regarding the API, BasicForm class provides following properties. I'm listing only the important ones, and those are data row that I already mentioned, that holds the complete data row of the form. Form XML, we already initialized this one. Form layout, the same thing. Interesting thing about the mode property is that you can set the BasicForm into insert or update or insert new culture version mode. Insert when the BasicForm is in insert mode, it clears out the form, so user can add new values to the form and submit it. If it is in update mode, the BasicForm holds the data of some kind of edited record, and insert new culture version as mode makes sense only for CMSForm control when managing the documents. Okay, so there are some also hash tables. For example, these hash tables hold collection of controls, collection of labels, controls, editing controls, and error labels. You can use them for example, customization purposes, whereas you can, from one control, you can access any other from this hash table. I'll show you how later on. And also there is some kind of submit button or submit image button. It depends which one you would like to prefer. Edited object. This is property that in case of CMSForm, the parent control of BasicForm, holds 3-node object. In case of custom table form and BizForm, it holds iData class object, and in case of DataForm, it holds abstract info or data class info objects. Parent object property, it makes sense to use this one only in case when you're using CMSForm control, and if that control is in insert mode, it holds the 3-node object of the parent document under which we are trying to insert the current one. Allow macro editing, I've already covered this one. You can see some kind of a macro editor for your field, and those the rest of these are pretty much self-explanatory. What kind of methods are there? Load data method with the input parameter data row calls internally load form layout or load deform layout, depending whether you do have some custom layout or not. And within these two methods, create editing form control is called. Very important method here that basically renders the control to the collection of controls. When saving or submitting the form, save data method is called. And first of all, we need to validate data with the validate data method, and once everything is correct, then the BasicForm saves the data into data row, and parent controls are responsible then for saving the data into database. I hope that so far it is clear, and we can move forward to layout. Each of the form can have its own layout, or alternative form can have its own layout, and you can define the layout using this so-called layout editor, and allowed macros that are available in a layout editor are label, input, validation, visibility, and submit button. Label represents the label control, input represents the form control itself, validation represents the validation message for the form control. Visibility is something that is pretty much dedicated or special to CMS user class, and it's used, for example, on the community side. I'm not going to cover this one because we do not have such time. Interesting thing here is that if you forgot to add submit button macro into your custom layout, the system will simply add one because we would like live visitors to submit the form. Okay, so in order to understand how the form controls work in Kentico CMS, we need to move back to the form definition. As I mentioned, the form definition is stored in CMS_class table, and it's sort of XML structure. For each of the fields, there is a field element with some attributes. These attributes pretty much reflect form field info class in our API. So for example, if you do have form field info object and access the caption property, field caption value from the form definition will be taken. So in this case, it will be contact us ID. Form field info as well as form info are used within the form engine to allow the engine to generate the forms, so that each of the form control will know what is basically rendering. Interesting thing here is that if the field type is equals to user control, in this case there is additional subsection called settings, and within the settings subsection there is a code name, in this case email input, code name of the form control that should be used for this field. In case of built-in form controls, there is no such section, and the system just simply knows that field type equals to label is some kind of a built-in form controls. These form controls are built into the YAML files, and without the source code version you're not able to modify them. But the rest of the form controls are available for all of the editors or designers. I think that each of the attributes simply reflect the properties of the form field info class. You can find more information about form controls in our documentation, and those form controls are registered in the CMS Site Manager Development and Form Control section. I can show you. Those are here listed, such that are not built into DLL files. I've prepared one form control for you for demonstration purposes. It's called related drop-down list. As I can see, I've registered this form control in CMS Site Manager. I provided the path or location of this form control and use it for long text or text types, field types. Okay. So when trying to develop custom form control, you need to inherit from Form Engine user control class. Uh, Properties of this class are form. It holds the basic form. Field info. Form field info class is used for this property. So from your custom form control, you can simply access any information that the user defined for the field that is used for a form control. For example, like caption, size, etc. Form control parameter. This is very interesting. Some of you might already be aware of it, but some of you not. So I've decided to cover this one in my code example. Value is very important setting because it gets the data from database and it saves the data into database for a particular form control. And regarding methods, isValid method should return true only in case that validation was successful of the particular form control. And with getOtherValues method, you can simply override values of other form control of other fields in a particular form. You should return a field name, couple field name and value. How do you access any other form controls and form control values from within your custom form control? You need to access the basic form. In this case, it's property form, and you can access field controls, hash table. According to name of the field, you can get any of the fields that are rendered already for the form. In this case, I access the product price form control and cast it to text box because I know that the product price is of type text box, and then I can simply change text box text property in order to change the value in the hash table. But if we don't know the type of the form control that we would like to modify, we can simply access field editing controls hash table according to name of the field, and then we can cast it to editing form control. This is sort of similar to the first one, but we've decided to provide also customers with unified control for all of the form controls. So it has also value property where you can set or get value from the database. So if you don't know the type of the control that you would like to extend or modify, you can simply access field editing controls and cast it to editing form control. Editing form control class is also holds built-in form controls, so like text box, label, checkboxes, etc. An important method in here is create control method that basically, according to form field info, creates the control. Okay, I think we can move to my example. That will be more interesting than talking about the API. So I've prepared one example in BizForms. Let's demonstrate what it does. I've got 3 fields here, site, BizForm, and form, and these fields use 3 instances of the same form control. The first one holds the information about the site, and on change of the first one, the 2 others are changing also. I'm basically populating 2 others controls according to parameter from the first one. We can we can do pretty much, we can ensure this behavior also with one form control and with 3 drop-down lists, but I just wanted to show you how you can communicate between the form controls, because this is pretty much what our customers are always asking, how to communicate between the form controls. So let's take a look on how does it work. Okay, we've got a one form control that holds the drop-down list, standard ASP.NET control, and there is some code behind here. But first of all, I will show you what I have done in means of form definition here. So we've got 3 fields, and the first field has something specified in the field definition. What is it? I've specified here SQL query that will be executed in order to populate the first drop-down list, and also I specified some kind of XML definition here that tells me to which of the other controls is the first one related. So the site ID will populate the BizForm and forum with the site ID information. Let's take a look on the other ones. They're still using the same form control. There is also some kind of a SQL query, and there is some kind of parameter in the SQL query. This parameter is populated from the parent drop-down list. And again, the form ID field also has some kind of a SQL query that will be executed. So how do we pass the parameter between these 2 form controls, for example, between the site ID and BizForm ID? The answer is pretty simple. We use form control parameter for this. So within the value, I'll show you how it is done. Within the value property of the form control, we always need to inherit from Form Engine user control when developing custom form control. Within the value property of my form control, I call ensureItems method, and the ensureItems method simply accesses the description. Here it is, field description of my form. It's basically form field info object that holds the description from the form definition. So I can access the SQL query, execute it and populate the drop-down list with some kind of data. Then what I need to do is register on after data load event that is basically available for a BizForm, and here you can see that the form is basically BizForm object, and BizForm object has several customization options, and those are basically control event handlers. We can extend those. We can extend behavior, or we can modify the behavior of the form control with usage of these event handlers. So for example, there is on before save event handler that gets fired when before the data is saved, etc. So for this purpose, I just used on after data load event handler. So what I'm doing in the handler when it's fired from the BasicForm, I simply access again description, because I've got also some kind of related information to which of these form controls should be reloaded. I simply again access the description, get name of the related form controls, and with the usage of field controls hash table, I can simply, according to code name as I mentioned, can access the rest of the form controls located on the form. I can cast it to Form Engine user control, for example, and access its form control parameter property. And here what I do is that I take the side ID from the main drop-down list and I assign it to nested drop-down lists, and that's pretty much about it. Now we can take a look what's happening when the value is assigned to form control parameter property. As you can see, there is some setter here, and if you assign the parameter to form control parameter property, what I do here is that I take simply the side ID that was assigned. I execute some kind of a query that populates the related drop-down list with what I've received, and that's pretty much about it. So now we can take a look again on the behavior. So if I change the first drop-down list, form control parameter property is populated of the other two controls, and here we go. We change simply data of related form controls with simple usage of form control parameter. I hope that this is something new to you, and because to be honest with you, not all of our customers know about form control parameter property, and I would say that it's really powerful when in meetings when you would like to reload the form controls. If you didn't catch the code, etc., don't worry. I will provide you with the code examples later on. So also this presentation will be you will be able to download this presentation also. Okay, let's go into CMS form control. This one is mentioned for editing or inserting documents data because it knows about the content tree structure. It also ensures the content tree hierarchy for blocks, and it stores the uploaded files in database and file system as configured, and it's capable of displaying publish to and publish to, publish from, and documents name fields. The CMS form control uses BasicForm to render the form, and once we get the data from the BizForm, from data row property of BizForm, the CMS form handles the storage of the data into document tables. So let's take a look on the example. How do we populate it and how do we work with it? I've again prepared one example. Here we go. So there is one web part responsible for this form control that we have prepared. Okay, here we go. As you can see, I'm using CMS form control, and now if you'd like to populate it with some data or let the CMS form control to render some form, we need to specify form name, node ID, and rest of the options are optional, like template ID, form mode, and alternative form full name. So let's try to display some form. For example, CMS FAQ. It's a document type used by default in Kentico CMS. Here you can see that if I specify the form name, the CMS form control is capable of displaying the form. Of course, if I fill some data in here and try to validate it, I get some exception, then that parent node does not exist, because what I forgot here is to specify the node ID. Node ID equals to parent document node ID in case of the form is in insert mode, and in case the form is in update mode, the node ID equals to node ID of currently being edited document. So if I would like to insert my data into under some document in the content tree, I need to know node ID of my parent document. Let's take a look, for example, on the root of our website. Here we go, node ID of the root of the website is 1. So if I specify the node ID equals to 1, the form goes directly into insert mode, and I can submit some data. Once I press the OK button, here we go, the changes were saved, and we can take a look on our content tree, and we can see that the new document was created with our data. Here we go. Now, if I would like to put the CMS4 into edit mode, what I need to do is I need to know node ID of the document that I would like to edit. So if I navigate Properties tab and General section, here we go, 791. So if I copy it here, the form should go into update mode and display data. But of course, there is one thing to consider, and that is that we need to put the CMS form into update mode. So what I need to do is that I need to specify form mode equals to update, and here we go. We get the data and we can simply edit it. And the changes are now reflected also in our content tree in CMS Desk. It's pretty simple to work with the CMS form control. I'll show you the code example here. What we needed to populate is node ID, and important thing is form name. Important property is form name, and I think that's pretty much about it. And also the culture code is important. Those other properties like default page template, alternative form full name are optional. And as you can see, there is nothing else on how to initialize the CMS form control. This one is used for also in user contributions module, and also the same one is used on a form tab. As you can see, pretty much the same is rendered in here. Okay, so it has CMS form has a basic form as usual. Sorry, it has basic form property as usual. Node ID, I've already covered this one. And what's interesting here regarding the methods, we've got load form method. Basically, initializes the basic form with all the properties, and when submitting the form, save method is called. Basically calls the basic form save data method, and then save data to database or DB is called. Let's take a look on the life cycle of the CMS form. That might be interested for you. So once the onPreRender event of the page is called, CMS form control, as I mentioned, in load form method, it adds the basic form to the control collection, and once the basic form is initialized and added to the control collection, it calls load data method. Within the load data, we try to add editing form control to the control collection. Each of the editing form control tries to add some kind of a form control that could be text box, etc. So for that purpose, set value of the form control method is called, and after the control is added, then you can see that onInit, onLoad, and PageLoad events are called, and rest of the onPreRender. I think this is pretty straightforward how the hierarchy works in here. That CMSForm loads BasicForm loads editing, form control, etc. But important thing is here is that when it is called, it is basically done. Everything is done after on pre-render. What's happening when the bossback occurs? The first part is pretty much the same, except that it starts on init event of the page or method. Then all of the onLoad methods are called, page load of the form control, and interesting part here is that we call some kind of button save click, or button save click event is fired that initialize the BasicForm validation system that tries to get the value from the form control, validate the data within the form control, so isValid method is called. Then save method of the form control calls save data of a BasicForm, and once BasicForm returns the data row, we call save data to database, or DB method that handles storage of the data, and rest of the on pre-render events are called. As you can see from editing form control point of view, set value, get value, and again get value methods are called. So this is something that you need to pay attention to, from where and how often set value and get value methods are called when designing custom form control. Of course, the behavior or lifecycle for each of the form each of the controls, like CMSForm, DataForm, custom table form, are different, but we'll try to unify these life cycles in upcoming version, so that you can be sure that once some kind of a custom form control is developed, that it will work the same way in all of the parent controls like CMSForm is. Okay, so next one control is called BizForm. I think you're already familiar with the BizForm module. It's capable of sending some emails, etc. But what's interesting here is that again, the BizForm can be in some mode. It can be in mode insert or update. BizForm holds BasicForm control within one of the properties. Form name holds name of the form, sort of class name, and item ID is ID of the primary key from the BizForm table. And if it is specified, then the BizForm goes directly into update mode and tries to update, tries to get the record from the BizForm table and update the data. BizForm, as I mentioned, it can send notification emails and confirmation emails. There are two properties that are responsible for this behavior, and those are enable notification email and enable autoresponder email. Again, within the load form method of the BizForm, BasicForm is initialized, and when the boss spec occurs, save data to database is called with the already prepared data row from the BasicForm. Let's take a look on customization options here that we have with either BizForm or BasicForm. I've prepared one example for you. Hopefully we'll be able to cover it fully. Okay, so here you can take a look. It looks like some standard BizForm, except that it pre-populates the values of the form controls with values from the current user. But indeed, this button is custom one, So I've simply disabled the BizForm button and added custom button at the bottom of my web part, and also I've disabled form error label that is by default located at the top of the BizForm, and I put it to the bottom of the BizForm. So how this is done? If you can take a look, here we go. We've got the form validation label at the bottom of the BizForm, but by default it's located at the top. What I needed to do is that I've got several events registered: on after data load, on after save, on after data load of the BasicForm, and on validation failed. So within the setup control of my web part, I register on validation failed event, and within the on validation failed event, I simply can access any control that is located in a control collection of the BizForm. In this case, I access the label that is located at the top of the BizForm, and what I can do, I can simply hide it. So if I omit this line of code, we'll get two validation labels, one at the top and one at the bottom. So let's hide the first one again. Okay, here we go. So that was regarding events like, for example, on validation failed. And what we need to do in order that the BizForm will be some kind of processing of the BizForm will be fired. Within my custom button click, I need to call BasicForm and save data event. This one pretty much fires the BasicForm processing, and then BizForm processing is performed. What I would like to show you here is also that in means of BizForm, we need it only to initialize it with form name, side name, and that is pretty much about it. What I'm doing in the other events, like on after data load, etc. Here is some event that is fired on after data load event occurs, and what I'm doing here is that I simply I'm hiding the submit button. I'm setting its visibility to false, and on after save I'm just simply hiding my custom submit button, because if I provide the BizForm with valid data and submit the form, I don't want it to show my custom button. So that's why I know that on after save event handler is fired only in case when the validation was successful and the data was saved into database, so I can be sure that I can hide my custom button. And within on after data load event that I already registered for my BizForm, I'm simply trying to access form controls according its names. Here we go. I'm trying to pre-populate the values for the form controls, and this can be done with accessing the hash table. I can either access the field controls hash table or field editing controls. When accessing the field controls, I need to know, as I mentioned previously, I need to know exact type of the control that it should be cast to. In this case, it's text box, so it's working for me. But if I don't know the actual type of the form control, I should use always field editing controls hash table and cast my form control to editing form control. And when I do have editing form control, I can simply access its value property, because if I wouldn't know that there is a text property of the text box, I will not be able to work with the form control. Okay, so this was pretty much about the BizForms. And last thing here regarding these controls are that I would like to discuss are DataForm and custom table form. DataForm is used for system tables like CMS useries, etc. And custom table form control is used for tables from our custom table module. These are pretty much similar and contains almost identical properties like previous controls. For example, BasicForm, it holds the BasicForm, class name, it's sort of like a form name previously, item ID, it's some kind of property that reflects, for example, node ID from the CMS form, and etc. It also holds the form mode. It can be of type insert or update. Again, there are some methods within the reload data we call load form method, and within the load form, BasicForm is initialized and renders the form, and when postback occurs, we call save method, and within the save method we register on after save event handler of the BasicForm, and once the BasicForm returns the data row, save data to database is called it is some kind of a related within the on after save event handler. So what we can do with the DataForm, we can also here we go. I've got also one page for DataForm, and if I populate class name query parameter with, for example, cms.faq class name, I can see that the DataForm is able to render the form for document type, for my document type. By default, we should handle only system tables with the DataForm. So, for example, like CMS useries, it can display the form, and also it can go into insert or update mode. But what I want to show you here with the CMS FAQ document type is that it can simply display it. Form engine test. It can display the form, and it can also save the data into document type, in this case document type table. But the DataForm does not know about the content tree structure, etc. So we will end up with data in document type table. In this case, it's content FAQ. Here we go. But this data is not related anyhow to document content tree. So in other words, you will not be able to find any record in CMS_tree and CMS_document tables. But this example just demonstrates that with the DataForm control, you can basically render any form, any kind of form, and store any kind of values to any kind of classes. For example, I can show BizForm contact us. So if I set some values here, the DataForm controls saved the data into our BizForm table, but the additional BizForm processing was some kind of omitted in this case. I can find the record, I can find the record in here, but as you can see, we're missing some additional fields like form inserted, form updated. Those are handled by BizForms. So, and any any other additional features like autoresponder, notification emails, etc. were not fired because the data form control is just saving the data into appropriate class table. Okay, I think the last thing here I've already covered, the customization options. So you can imagine that we have some kind of a method within our system where we call some before handler or after handler, and with these customization options, with the control event handlers, you can modify the behavior of standard controls in such a way that you can add your custom behavior when the handler is called. So for example, we've got on before save event handler. So before the data gets saved into database, you can call your custom code. For example, write an email to your friend that data is going to be saved into database, or something like that. Or you can register on before validate data or on after validate data, and once on after validate data on after validate event handler is called, you can be sure that everything was correctly validated. And also you can use custom form controls within your forms, where you can ensure your custom behavior. I think I'm pretty done here with my presentation. So if you do have some questions regarding the form engine, you can ask right now. I know that it was really fast this time because I wanted to cover form engine as it is, as a whole, and there are a lot of things to talk about. So hopefully I didn't forget anything important. So if you do have any questions related to form engine, you can ask right now. Okay, so if there are no questions so far, then I would like to thank you for attending this webinar, and thank you for your time, and hopefully we'll see each other in the future when discussing other topics related to Kentico CMS. Okay, thank you very much. Bye bye.